Hi, I'm Doug, one of the knowledge experts here at MicroCenter, and I'd like to spend a few minutes talking to you about what's going on the first time you boot a new computer. I see a lot of customers that see things going on that they don't understand and get asked questions that they're not quite sure about the right answers. So we're going to go over some really basic stuff when we boot this computer. And I'm going to have to get out of the picture and move the camera a lot closer. My apologies for the low video quality, but there's no way to do video capture on a computer that hasn't booted up yet. The first thing you're going to see here is only going to be on for a few seconds. When you see the manufacturer's logo, something's going on called a power on self-test, which basically is the computer figuring out whether it has a hard drive and RAM and a keyboard and a monitor, and there it went. Now when you see starting Windows, what's really going on is that power on self-test information is getting passed to Windows so that Windows can figure out what it needs to know in order to run everything. And this is basically saying just exactly the truth. It's preparing your computer for its first use. That means Windows is figuring out how many keys there are, whether there's a sound card, how many colors your monitor supports. And finally, it's going to ask you some fairly important questions. The first one, right here, is they want you to give it a username. Now, a lot of people just use their first name, which is perfectly acceptable. You might want to give it a different name. You can name it after your cat, your dog, your company name, maybe the department you're in, the job function. All sorts of things are acceptable. What I'm going to put in here is just owner. Pretty generic. Now, the next step confuses a lot of people. It's asking you to type a password, recommend it. Then you have to type it again, and then you have to type a password hint. Now, some people don't need a password. If you're the only person who's going to use the computer, you really don't have to put a password on it unless you think somebody else is going to be able to get at it. I'm going to put just a very simple password. Type it again. And type a hint. If you decide not to do a password, but you change your mind and decide later, well, I really want to have a password, you can do it afterwards. And of course, we have to accept the legal agreements. This is another place where a lot of people have doubts. The recommended settings tells it to do updates automatically, keep you safe on the internet, warn you about things like when your virus software is out of date. I always recommend you go with the recommended settings, but it is optional. Now, every now and then a customer will come in and they can't figure out why their clock can't tell time. Frequently, it's because they didn't set the right time zone. Here in Boston, the right time zone is Eastern Time. And the correct time is not 7:30, but 9:30. If you tell it the wrong time zone, what happens when you get on the internet, it discovers that this isn't the correct time. And it sets it to the time zone that you've told it you live in. If you tell it the wrong thing, you get the wrong time. What I'm doing now is providing an internet connection. If you don't have one available, you can simply skip this step. Eventually, you'll probably need to have an internet connection. This is one of those steps that takes a little time because it has to negotiate the connection using a password. Okay, once you have a connection, you have to tell it where that connection is. Now, if you're at home, you tell it it's a home network. If you're at work, a work network. If you're at a public location, a coffee shop, a restaurant, a library, someplace that's not quite as secure, you might want to tell it it's a public network. Now, this step always takes a little time. It's setting up all your network features. Typically, it only takes a couple of minutes. Now, if you happen to be on a network where there are other Windows 7 machines, you can set up something called Home Group. What Home Group does is allow you to share pictures, music, videos, and other files with other computers on that network. Considering this is not going to be on that sort of network, we're going to choose Skip. And now we get welcomed. But we're not really done yet. Because what's going to happen next is it's going to have to find a way to create places for all your stuff to go. That has to do with setting up your desktop. It's going to create a folder for your music, a folder for your pictures, a folder for your documents, a folder for your favorite icons, for your favorite internet sites. Okay, now every manufacturer has a different approach to welcoming you to your new computer. Click the button to begin. It's all very pretty, very animated, and what basically is going to happen is that it's going to help you get connected to the internet, registered, updated. Now, some of this is actually optional. Do you need to register your computer? Well, we can do it later. It is a good idea to register with the manufacturer, just in case there should be some kind of defect, just like you might with a recall on a car. Sometimes there are, in effect, recalls on computers. But we're going to tell it later. Staying updated. Okay, yes, you probably want to get updates automatically. Do you want to tune up your PC automatically? Well, that's a judgment call. What you might want to do, if you're not too sure, is say, no, remind me later. Do you want to help improve HP products? I usually say yes to these things. Even the Microsoft ones, that a lot of people would prefer not to send things to Microsoft. Anything that makes the product better, I'm in favor. Now, it comes with Norton Internet Security. It's a 60-day trial version. Now, if you have some other product that you want to put on, fine, go right ahead. If you'd rather put your own on, or just do this later, you can tell it, no, we'll do it later. Are you sure? they really want you to buy their product. But I'm sure. The next step is going to be getting online, and frankly, we already have. But if you do not have a service provider currently, it does give you the option to consider different possible service providers. This may be something you'd rather research before you choose one. And then we're finished. The lovely hand goes away. We get thanked, and soon we will have a desktop with icons and a taskbar and all those things that you bought your computer for. Okay, there's your final wallpaper, which, by the way, you can change later if you don't happen to like this one. And there's your desktop. At this point, your computer is virtually ready to use. There's still a few little things loading down here in the system tray. There's the HP Advisor. A lot of different companies put on software that is intended to make it easier to use your computer. Personally, I tend to like keeping my computer clean, so the option to not launch the Advisor on every boot is fairly attractive. And I don't generally want to have them updating marketing content. If you think you may be buying more HP products, you might want to leave that on. It's a judgment call. And from here on, there are a few things that you'll probably want to do, but I'm going to cover those in the next video. Thanks for watching.